Another common function is f of x equals to square root of x. Now, square root of x, the domain cannot be possible for any possible values of x. If you put a negative value, square root of a negative value, that's not possible. We cannot calculate this. Let's check. So if we have a square root over here, square root of -1, that is a math error. We cannot calculate square root of a negative number. We can calculate square root of 0, that is 0. We can calculate square root of 5, that's a positive number. But we cannot calculate square root of any negative number. That's a mathematical error. That means when we are writing the domain, the value of x, whatever happens, it has to be either 0 or greater than 0. In other words, the domain has to be greater than or equal to 0, and on this side it could be going up to infinity. It doesn't really matter. So we can write the domain with the third bracket, comma, infinity, bracket closed. So that's how we write the interval. So here the domain is going to be x is greater than or equal to 0. That is understood. Everything in the real value that is either 0 or greater than 0. In case of range, square root of a number cannot be negative. First of all, that number has to be 0 or greater than 0. That is the domain. But the output value, square root of x, if we find a value, the value will always be positive. It can be 0 or it can be positive. If you check this visually, you can see square root of a positive number, square root of x, it looks like this. And 0 is the smallest value it can have. Below that, it is not possible. So if you follow the vertical line, it can only be positive. So square root of x has a range of fx is greater than or equals to 0. This simply means that we have a function that has a square root, roots. So suppose this is ax plus b. Now the domain, the problem is that is not allowed is we cannot find the square root of a negative number. So ax plus b has to be positive or 0. It cannot be negative, meaning it has to be non-negative. It can be 0 or positive, greater than 0. So the domain is going to be, if we just solve this inequality, is the same as x is greater than or equal to minus b by a. So this is going to be the range. X is greater than or equals to minus b by a. Let me do a number of examples over here. The first example, we can do f of x equals to twice x minus 1, square root of twice x minus 1. So we can see that inside the square root we have twice x minus 1. So this value has to be non-negative, meaning greater than or equal to 0. So the domain is going to be x is greater than or equals to half. F of x equals to square root of x minus 1 plus 3. Now notice here, it doesn't really matter outside, what is outside the square root. What matters, what is inside the square root. So we can ignore this plus 3 over here, and we can see that inside the square root it has to be non-negative. It has to be greater than or equal to 0. Therefore the domain is going to be x is greater than or equal to 1. That's it.